2024, we had the honor to come back to Liberia and present our election observation mission report. And such a report is not only depicting the results of the elections, but also, let's say, trying to provide a guidance how even to improve the next election. So therefore, this report had 22 recommendations for how to improve the electoral framework even in the future. But we have to say also that the 2023 election in generally were very good organized elections and also showed a big commitment of the whole country and the political sphere for a credible process also of holding elections. And we have to underline this because the 2023 election were somehow also historic elections because we're the first one who were conducted by Liberian authorities themselves. So the whole responsibility lie on the shoulders of Liberia and especially the NEC. So our recommendations, just to summarize them a little bit, we're addressing the existing ambiguities in the legal framework here in the country. We're asking also the legislator to determine a population threshold for the constituency boundaries, as also enshrined and laid down in the Liberian constitution. We had also a huge list of recommendations concerning NEC to improve NEC, but also to help NEC timely and to provide NEC with timely and adequate resources, financial resources, technological and personality resources, in order to enable NEC better also to fulfill its duties in an independent and objective manner, and also in a very professional manner. To improve voter registration was another important point, and also to improve the NEC in order to make them able to enforce also campaign finance rules in the field. And another point was to improve women participation in politics, underlining that the representation of females in Liberian politics, especially in the two chambers of the legislature, the parliament, is not only below the statistic population number, but also, let's say, in the last years simply not increasing and very, very low, and therefore it has to be improved, and we were recommending to take this very seriously and maybe also to discuss to impose a quota for both genders of 30% minimum. And also the dispute resolution mechanism had to be improved in order to have also more quick and efficient decision on the forefront and not having, let's say, a loading to the end and a loading to the high court. So these were our package of the 2022 recommendation, let's say, in a generalized way. Now, this year, I was here for the last 3 days in the country, and the two colleagues even were here, let's say, for roughly 1 month. And we had the honor to have a lot of high and important meetings. And it's important to underline because it's also showing that all levels of stakeholders in the country take it quite serious what concerning the work on the elections, and also that the work of the EU as such and the election observation mission is welcomed very broadly, and also that our recommendations are taken like, let's say, like a guideline, a roadmap, a navigation tool for improving the system. Our meetings were with the president of the country, ministers like the justice minister, the deputy foreign affairs minister, of course also the opposition like the CDC party, the chief justice, the NEC, so the election committee, the House of Representatives, the Senate, and of course also European diplomats based here in the country, and last but not least, the whole range of civil society, electoral observers, civil society, but also all other kinds of civil society. And also we concluded our mission today with an 4-hour long lasting roundtable to discuss in depth also all the points with all stakeholders of the society. So when you ask me what is the conclusion, I think we have some good news for the country. This is that the EU is the basis for the reform and also broadly welcomed and supported. And I hope that this broadly welcoming means also that the reforms are taken serious and also are supported in a broad majority beyond political borders. Also for the midterm, we have to say there is accountability and movement concerning the reforms, but we have to say they are not implemented now. Processes have been kicked off in several fields, but also they need to be followed very closely and timely, because 2029 elections are not as far as it would look for the first few. They will come quite quickly and soon, so credibility is decided now by implementation of the necessary reforms, with timely implementation of these necessary reforms, and therefore our final, let's say, recommendation is to start the implementation right now. Thank you, and we of course now open for details, questions, or whatever your heart serves.
Please, every time, please mention your name and the outlet and the media outlet you represent. Thank you.
Thank you. So my name is Melvin Jackson, and I report for Spoon FM as the judicial correspondent. And one of the recommendations that I listened to has to do with women participation in elections, particularly both houses. Well, many times, if you ask the women, they will tell you that their male counterparts are not giving them a chance, and then other finance or some financial issues, and some of the causes for which they cannot compete with their male counterpart. But from your own observations and your own maybe different discussion with them, what do you observe, and what is the EU doing to have that being worked on, so at least comes 2029, we will have more women coming up and to compete with their male counterparts?
Yeah, thank you for this question, and maybe to come very clearly on it. We had meetings with the two legislative chambers, where also the president of the Senate is a woman, and I think she's also very supportive, and we have to say also the president in our meeting with him was clearly stating that women and female participation has to increase. So it is less about, let's say, having the headline. It's more about concrete actions to achieve this. And the responsibility for this lies, first of all, of course, at the parties. So it is necessary that all political parties in the country nominate more electable women, and also meaning to support these women with the necessary electoral campaign means also to be elected. It is not a question of cosmetics on the list, on some, let's say, non-electable places. It is a question of very concrete placement. Secondly, therefore, we asked also to discuss in the country how to implement measures. Quota is one which is in most European countries, including also the European Parliament, implemented. Just to remind you, the European Parliament has an equal gender representation quota for all its political bodies, all the committees, all the groups, everything. Means 50-50, not 30-70. So there is even space to go further. Secondly, there is the question if the first past the post system is the system which makes this question easy. But again, it is not a system which does not allow equal representation. The UK, which also is, let's say, the motherland of first past the post political system, has 40% women in the House of Commons. So it is also possible to do. So first of all, there is a will. Second, it needs to be a stronger will and a stronger commitment. Secondly, also to overcome barriers which does not allow women to be candidate or makes it hard for women to be candidate. We speak also about social media, environment and harassment and this kind of issues. And thirdly, to implement some measures, could be affirmative measures or also measures. But I think it is not acceptable for the women in this country that you only have around 10% representation in the political parliament here in the country.
Yeah, so thank you. My name is Yagia Kwaita and I write for the Heritage newspaper Liberia. So I'm concerned firstly, I would like to add what key electoral reform that the EU mission in Liberia is seeing addressed or delayed, and secondly, what lesson did the EU observers took from the 2023 general presidential election here in Liberia?
Maybe then for some details I can give also over, but again we have to say the 2023 election in generally were very well organized and did function good, and also provided a good basis for a smooth and peaceful transference of power. I think this is important to underline, but a good election is the starting point for a better election process in the next election. So therefore, our recommendations, and we cannot say we have one recommendation, but there is a long list of recommendations which concerns better voter registration, better process of registration of candidates, better control of use of resources for the candidates, stronger control of the respecting of financial ceilings and questions like this, but also the campaign environment, and of course providing the National Election Committee with the necessary means to start now with the work. And one important point is also voter education in the field. But maybe...
Yeah, there are also some other recommendations on including making a holistic review of the national elections law, and that includes issues like as Mr. Schieder mentioned, the ensuring the financial security or the financial stability of the NEC, and also to include also more stringent or more requirements for campaign finance, and also give or provide the NEC with more with conditions to monitor the campaign the candidates and party expenses and contributions during the campaign. So in order to achieve an even play. These are more the recommendations that we would like to highlight, including also, and it was already mentioned by your, it was already asked by your colleague on gender, on the participation of women, and also on persons with disabilities. And of course, civic and voter education is important that the voters get to know how to vote and how to make an informed choice. That is very, very relevant, and that is also included in the recommendation.
So thank you very much. My name is Catherine K. Conte, and I report for the Liberian News Agency. So my concern has to do with considering the growing influence of misinformation and partisan online narrative in Liberia. I want to know, has the EU followed up?
Were there others involved in an organizational capacity?
Not really, not really. I just mentioned to the court that there were others that dropped including the gentleman I mentioned, Tony King. He dropped aside because he just wouldn't go to Libya. He was just frightened. He wouldn't go there. We're talking about the Cold War period, and that name Libya was almost like Black Snake. You know, we appreciated Libya for what they were doing, supporting the whole Pan-African idea. So we were not frightened to be labeled whatever they wanted to call us.
Now, Tonya King, what was his background?
Tonya King is married to the daughter of the late President William Ira Talbot, that we discussed here, that was killed in the coup d'etat by Doe. And immediately thereafter, he settled in La Côte d'Ivoire.
Now, was Tonya King in a position to provide any particular assistance to those seeking to put together the NPFL?
Oh, definitely. Tonya assisted in providing the food, the contact. He's in La Côte d'Ivoire living with his wife. He's known by all of the senior people in the Ivorian establishment. Why? Remember I spoke about Daisy being married to A.B. Talbot, the son of the late William Ira Talbot, whose sister is married now to Tonya King. So there is sympathy in the establishment for that family in total. And so he helps substantially. He helps in whatever way he can. And I'm saying to you, he breaks away at the Libyan part that apparently he just couldn't take, I guess.
Apart from contacts with the Ivorian establishment, did he have any other contacts in Côte d'Ivoire?
Yes, of course. Tonya had been a very, he was trained in the intelligence field. In fact, at the time of the coup d'etat in Liberia, Tonya is what we call Commissioner of Immigration and Naturalization, which is a part of the security establishment. He had good friends among the British and American embassies in Ivory Coast. He had very good contacts.
Contacts with whom within those embassies?
Of course, the officials, the ambassador, the intelligence people, he knew all of them.
Intelligence people like whom?
I don't know the names of the individuals, but when we talk about intelligence from the United States, especially external intelligence, we're talking about what? The Central Intelligence people. He did not introduce us to them because he's an intelligence officer, but he had extensive contacts with them.
And was that of assistance to the NPFL?
Well, I didn't ask Tonya where he got his little money from, but he assisted with little funds and meals, and things were just made easy for us. Remember now, moving people across West Africa, from Ivory Coast to Burkina Faso to Libya, there was no leakage anywhere. No one, nowhere, anywhere on this planet knew at that particular time that Charles Taylor was training people in Libya. So I must assume that those connections were used very well because we moved people throughout that region. We got travel documents for them. So Tony used his links very well.
Let me just pause for a moment. Dealing with the same topic, did you have a secretary when you were at the GSA, Mr. Taylor?
Yes.
Can you recall her name?
Yes.
What is it?
My secretary at the General Services Agency was called Grace B. Minor. It was not just secretary, it was something like an assistant directorship and special assistant. Grace Beatrix Minor, who later on also fled to the United States. And after I
When
left,
did she flee to the United States?
at the time of my departure from the General Services Administration, when Clarence Mamadou arrived at the GSA, he went after Grace Minor and the deputy Blambo Nelson that I said is now senator in Liberia. Blambo remained in Liberia, but Grace went to the United States, and she remained in contact with me throughout this period and was the second main link to Ellen Johnson Sirleaf. That was a very, very, very close buddy of Grace Minor.
Now,
Mr. Griffiths, two things, the spelling of minor
M-I-N-O-R.
and the date of the French trip, it was that you went to France.
Okay, that is after I come out of jail. I'm going to have to approximate this, Justice. I'm released from the prison in Accra in late, let's say, 86. I go, so that trip to Paris has to be somewhere in the first half of 87.
Now, so that's Grace Minor. Now, you've already told us that many of your recruits came from Liberians living in Cote d'Ivoire. Was there anyone in particular who had the main responsibility for that process of recruitment in the Cote d'Ivoire?
Yes, the one that comes to mind is the late Alfred May. Alfred was responsible. He's late now. He's the one that comes to mind right now.
You mentioned earlier a man called Moses Dupo.
That's correct.
Now, who was Moses Dupo?
Moses Dupo was a mutual friend of mine and General Thomas Kuwamba. We were in the States together in the Union of Liberian Associations in the Americas. I think I mentioned that in my testimony on yesterday. It so happened that Tupi, my wife's sister, was also, Tupi's sister was also married to Moses Dupo. So we were in the union together, but these are two guys that were married in the same family. So we were very close. He was very, very close to General Kuwamba also, and was also in La Côte d'Ivoire at the time.
Now, you spoke of a split with Tonya King over the Libyan connection. Was Tonya King
Excuse me, but I think that mischaracterizes what the witness said. He didn't talk about a split. He talked about Mr. King being afraid to go to Libya.
Yes,
Very well.
Okay, but I can clarify that.
Well, can you help us then,
Yes.
please, Mr. Taylor?
I think counsel is right. Tunian is with me all the way, but he just would not travel to Libya. He was afraid. And again, we are in this period of the Cold War, and Libya is not the type of word that anybody wants to hear. And just to, I don't want to use the word speculate because the code doesn't accept that, but my own guess, I'll put it this way, is that Tonya has intelligence connections, and maybe it's good that he didn't go, because his connections with the diplomatic committee in Ivory Coast just might have exposed him. But he did not go, and so I got upset and felt that if we had put men together to send for training and he was not prepared to visit them as Tom had visited them. And it's not like in Ellen, who was in the United States and by coming would have probably burned her track. They would have gotten to know. But being right in West Africa, if he didn't go, then we had to drop him, and we dropped him.
Was anybody else dropped from the original organizing group?
No, nobody else was dropped. The Moses Duopos of this world and the other people, as we advanced in this process, maybe I can see where your questions are coming from. I just want to explain this. There were some of the individuals down there that were anxious and wanted to get people to train. They wanted to fight. They were reluctant, and may I just suggest scared, when it came to Libya. They would go all the way, oh my God, if the people know that we in Libya, it would be so some of us were prepared to do it because we believe in this whole Pan-African approach, and we knew how Libya had been helping other areas like this terrible apartheid regime in South Africa, that if it had not been for Gaddafi, they would probably still be sitting there. You understand me? And they would still be sitting in Southwest Africa that we now call Namibia. And most of these revolutionary movements, just at that particular time, Libya was something like a black snake. But some of us was prepared, were prepared, because this man was genuine in trying to help the Pan-African cause. And I'm not talking terrorism. I'm talking about the Pan-African cause. So those of our friends and brothers that wanted to do something but were not prepared we just had to drop them. That included the Duopos of this world and the rest of them. King
The rest of them like who?
Oh, there's just so many of them in La Côte d'Ivoire. Harry Newman was down there. He didn't go along. Sam Doki was there. It's a whole bunch of them. It's a whole list that were not prepared to take that extra step to get training done in Libya. Maybe in any other place they would have, but Libya was a no-no.
Doki? How do you spell it?
Samuel Doki, D-O-K-I-E, Samuel Doki. He joined me subsequently, but he was in the area.
Does the name General Podia mean anything to you, Mr. Turner?
Podia was
That's a leading question.
Well, it is leading, Mr. Griffiths, but are you asking something that's an issue, or?
Well, I was hoping it wasn't an issue, Your Honor, but maybe I ought to tread with care. I don't know if it's bleeding, but still. Who was Samuel Doe's vice president on the PRC?
After the execution of General Thomas Ware Saint that we've mentioned here, General Podia became the vice head of state.
Did he remain in that position?
No. General Podia, the question that you asked me earlier, if I were to begin to name everybody, it would be virtually impossible, because everyone that was anti-Do was out of Liberia there, including Podia. Podia was there.
How did Podia come to be there?
Well, Podia he had also broken away. After the elections of Samuel Doe, Podia and all of these guys were sidelined. And I'm talking about the election of October 1985. They were all sidelined, and Podia and all of these guys became disgruntled and left the country and were prepared to fight to remove Doe.
In what circumstances did General Podia leave Liberia?
I'm sorry, I can't recall the exact situation. I was not in Liberia at the time, but I know that his life was under threat and he came out of Liberia.
Now, you've told us about groups of Liberians training in Ghana, in Libya. Did anything happen in relation to General Podia in any such attempt?
Well, let's get the sequence here right. These guys, Podia, Dupu, all of them remain in La Côte d'Ivoire. The men are now training, and I think early to middle 1987, Podia, now so impatient, may I say, foolishly decides that he has found an African witch doctor that can make him invisible. And so he's going to become invisible, go to Liberia, enter the mansion, catch Doe, and take power. Now, it may sound crazy, but this is exactly what happened. He goes into Liberia, but before then, Doe begins to lure him into Liberia. Doe tells him to come back, and I'll make you vice president. Okay, we are not now in La Côte d'Ivoire. We're moving our people for our training in Libya. So he foolishly agrees and says, well, now that he has this so-called witch doctor disappearing power, he will accept the invitation, go and catch Doe and kill him. So he goes, and as he reaches Ganta, this is a town in Nimba County. Doe is already prepared for him. Doe arrests him and I think one other gentleman and kills him. That's the end of the Podia story.
Now I want to look in more detail at the actual logistics involved in putting together the NPFL. Where did the main recruitment take place?
La Côte d'Ivoire.
And for the most part, those recruited came from which ethnic groups in Liberia?
About 90% were members of the Gio and Mana ethnic groups from Nimba County.
By which route did they travel from Côte d'Ivoire to Libya?
They traveled via road from Côte d'Ivoire, Ouagadougou, and then a flight to Libya.
Who paid for it?
The Libyan, the Libyan Mataba paid for it.
In what numbers did they travel from Côte d'Ivoire to Libya?
They traveled in small groups, 15, 20, not large groups at a time, to make sure that it was just not too open to large numbers of persons moving. Some of them will travel by buses, some will travel by train into Ouagadougou.
And where did they obtain the necessary travel documentation from?
All of that was arranged by Tony and helped with the arrangement for the travel document. Alfred May, that I mentioned before, also helped with the arrangement for the travel document. All was required, and this is important, ECOWAS member states, that's the Economic Community of West African States, do not require visas for the member states. You can travel on what is called a laissez-passer to any of these countries. And in the case of what we call the Francophone group, and what is that? Those countries in West Africa that had France as their colonial masters are the Francophone. The Anglophone are those that the British were their masters. And so in the case of the Francophone, with an identity card even without a passport, you could travel. So what we sought to do, and I must admit, I do not know the full detail yet, because don't forget, I'm in jail in Ghana when the first two groups move. But after I get out, this is what I meet. They get lizard passes from using Tonian's contact, some from the Liberian embassy, and some of these guys, well, let me move that word, guys. Some of these men are Guilds. Now, the Guild ethnic group is a very large ethnic group that you find in La Côte d'Ivoire and in Liberia. They speak the same language. In La Côte d'Ivoire, they would throw one or two French words, but a Guild from La Côte d'Ivoire and a Guild from Liberia, you would know the difference, because when they meet, they speak Guild. This is also true for the Manas, and as we progress, this is also true when it comes to the Sierra Leone side of the border. So the Guilds from Liberia that spoke Guild went to the gendarmerie, and speaking Guild, they were able to get identity cards. Now, that's why I went through this whole thing to explain to you. So, to become an Ivorian for the Guilds, all you had to do, once you spoke the language, you went to the Ivorian gendarme office in Danane, which is a town, I think that's D-A-N-A-N-E, and that's in the records, or Emma, M-A-N, a little bigger town outside of Danane. Once you got there and you spoke Guild and said that you were coming from, let's say, a border town with Liberia, you were, you know, an Ivorian, and you got a carte d'identité. So they could also use that to travel to Burkina Faso. Because the carte d'identité, they had during that particular period, and I think to a great extent it still is this, you've got this, I think it's something is Entente.
Something what?
It's called Entente. I think it's a French word, Entente.
As in Entente Cordiale.
Voila, that's it.
This is an English-speaking court, by the way, Mr. Turner.
Yeah, well, you said as in cordial. Burkina Faso, Côte d'Ivoire, Togo, Benin, and I want to believe, to a great extent, Senegal. There was a time that ministers, individuals from those countries became French ministers. So that whole cooperation existed. So using an identity card between these countries was very, very simple, because they exchanged civil servants. If you were very good and you were, say, for example, Ivorian, you could become a minister in Burkina Faso. I mean, a minister in government. It's that type of cordiality that was amongst these states. So that's why it was so easy for the carte d'identité to be used between and amongst them.
And help us with this. What was the criteria for recruitment of men into the MPFO?
First, you had to be of age. You had to be of 18, which is the legal age in Liberia for men. I guess you had to be mad enough to want to fight. You had to be physical, but I mean, if you were not serious enough, I mean, there were sufficient angry people. You had to be angry enough to want to fight. Physically fit and of age, and you went in.
Now, let's move to Libya then, and I wonder if now I can be assisted with Defense Document 208. Now, Mr. Taylor, we have here a map of Libya. And can you see on that map Tarabulus, Tripoli?
Yes, I can.
Now, the camp to which these men were taken was in what location?
I did say that the men were taken to a town outside of Tripoli called Tajura.
How do you spell that?
That is Tarhurah.
Now, if we look at another map which looks like this, we see Tarabulus, and we also see highlighted Tajura. Yes?
Yes.
Now, first of all, Mr. Taylor, just physically, what was this camp like at Tajura?
Tajura is a very, very huge former United States military base that was built in Libya before the revolution of Colonel Gaddafi. It's an extraordinarily huge military base that was U.S. owned but had been vacated at the time of the revolution.
When was the first time that you went to Tajura?
Following my release from jail, I visit Libya again. And then the men are now in the camp. I go to the camp to visit them because they had not seen me. I had been in jail for 8 months. They had not seen me. I was just about to take them. They are now on the base. And so I went there to greet them and to, tell them thanks for what they were doing
Pause there.
because they had not seen me.
Pause there. How many men are we talking about?
The first two groups are already there. They are continuing. The movement is continuing. I get out. I've gone through this process. I go to, I have now gone to France. I have informed Ellen. I come back. I go to Libya now to go and visit with the men. By this time, the first two groups of men that have traveled, all I have seen of them myself are the photos. I have not physically met them yet. Even by the time I show those photos to Ellen, I have not met them yet.
But my question, to go back to it, Mr. Taylor, was how many men are in the camp at that stage?
They are about 40, 45 men at that stage.
In due course, what was the maximum number of men that you had at Tajura?
In due course, the total number of men finally reached about 168, I would say. Around about 168.
Now, I want to go through this part in some detail, Mr. Taylor, because you suggested that the plan to terrorize the people of Sierra Leone was hatched in Libya. You appreciate that, don't you?
Yes, I do.
So, taking things slowly and in stages, firstly, what was the Libya to which these recruits were sent?
You say, what was Libya?
Yeah, what was it like?
Well, we are now dealing with a Libya that is championing Pan-African activities. That is helping out across the continent those peoples that believed in the Pan-African approach and those that were interested in democratic governance. And let me make it very clear. When I got to Libya, that Libya that I met was anti-communist. In fact, Libya has never endorsed or embraced communism. It was never then and now. They were helping out in terms of training. They were seriously involved in trying to free the rest of Africa, and that's why I think that Gaddafi, whether people like it or not, is an African hero, by helping people to stand up against some of the terrible, filthy things that were going on the African continent under the guise of their colonial rule, even though it was at the time, neo-colonialism in different shapes and form. He was the only one that had the backbone to stand up to them, and that's the Libya that I met. I met a Pan-African Libya. I met a Libya willing and able to help, and did help almost every major functioning government of any revolutionary credentials from East, Central, to Southern and West Africa. They owe it to the Libyan people.
Now, you mentioned before the luncheon adjournment, Mataba.
That is correct.
Now, explain to us, what was Mataba?
The Mataba was an organization set up specifically to support Pan-African revolutionary activities in Africa, and I would hope, I would believe, else places, but I want to deal with Africa, in Africa, that I am positive about.
And I want you to help us. Is Mataba an organization? And if so, how is it composed? Help us, please.
Good. Members, the Mataba is not just Libyans. Individuals with revolutionary zeal, those that were interested in fighting this neo-colonial situation across Africa, you became a member. If you were a leader, you became a member of that organization. So the Mataba was not just Libyans, but the Mataba was those Libyans that were there to help, but they were mostly the organizations across Africa that needed their help comprised the membership.
Right. Now, just give us the names of some of the organizations from around Africa which was part of that Mataba, please.
The ANC, full member. SWAPO.
Where was SWAPO upon? Remind us, not everyone is 61
Okay.
years old, Mr. Taylor.
I'm sorry for being so old.
And also, if we could have the full names rather than the acronyms.
Yes, Your Honor. The ANC is the African National Congress that is now in power in South Africa. SWAPO was the Southern African political organization under the
I can't see that there's any dispute about this. It's actually the Southwest
African People's SWAPO that was headed then by our good friend Sam and Juma. You also had the Ghanaian revolution that was headed by Jerry Rawlings.
They were a member too.
Of course.
Who else?
You had Burkina Faso. They were members of the Mataba. You had Uganda, was a member of the Mataba.
What was that organization called, or did it have a name?
No. Uganda went there. This is the time of, we're talking all the way back 86, 87. At that particular time, they did not go there as an organization. My good friend in Uganda was going through his own problems, but they had representatives.
Who's he?
I'm talking about the present president, Museveni.
So he was there as well, was he?
No, not he personally, he had a representative there.
Okay, and what was that representative's name? Do you know? If you don't, tell us.
I don't quite recollect. I will see if I can go through my head, but there was a representative there.
Do you know someone by the name of Mbabazi?
Objection, that is leading.
What are you saying, Mr. Grievous?
Well, Mr. President, I understand that leading questions are not disallowed where you're dealing with non-contentious issues. If it is contentious, then of course I will act with more care. But normally I understand that where you're not dealing with matters in dispute, then there's no objection to leading, but I stand corrected if a different rule applies.
Is it in dispute?
That was not the position taken during the prosecution case in chief, and we don't know if it's in dispute because we don't know what they want to use it for, and we have no idea who the representative was. So it's not a matter that is of common knowledge.
All right, well, you can renew your objection if it turns out it is in dispute. I'll allow the question. Go ahead.
Very well. Do you know that name, Mr. Taylor?
I know Mbabazi very well.
And who was he?
He was a representative that went in and out from Uganda.
And some spellings, Samanjoma, N-U-J-O-M-A, Museveni, Yoweri, Y-O-W-E-R-I, Museveni, M-U-S-E-V-E-N-I, and Amama, Mbabazi, A-M-A-M-A, M-B-A-B-A-Z-I.
Mbabazi.
Yes. Now, so far you've mentioned various groups from around Africa, Mr. Taylor. Were there groups there from any other part of the world?
Yes, we met a group. Some of them I really cannot recall their own affiliations at this particular time, but there were groups from other part of the world.
Help us. What parts of the world?
There were groups from Europe. There were groups
Such as what parts of Europe?
The United Kingdom. There were groups from
where in the United Kingdom?
Well, there were Irish groups there from the IRA. There were IRA representatives. I don't know, because most of these individuals, we have to be lucky to know their names. But there were groups from different parts. That I don't recall some of the names from the southern hemisphere, Sumatra, and I forgot what area that is. Sumatra. There were representatives from the island states, from all over.
So, how many people were? Give us an idea. How many people were actually a part of the Mataba? How many people are we talking about?
Well, in terms of individuals, I don't know the number, but in terms of organizations, there could have been as many as 25 different groupings and organizations that comprise the Mataba.
Now, what did the Mataba actually do as an organization? How did it manifest itself?
The Mataba provided funds, provided means of training, provided what I would call an enabling a situation for those that were yearning for change and help. But within that, what you wanted and how you wanted it was a part of a collective discussion. So, for example, let's say I'm at the Mataba, and some of the people that we met, I forgot to mention other groups that were there, were the Gambian group was there. So I reached to the Mataba, and at any given meeting, for example, some of the meetings that I sat in, there were Sierra Unions, there was a Sierra Union, there was a Gambian, there was a Ghanaian, there was a Burkinabe, there could be a South African, but you sit down, discuss your problems and what possibly had to be done to assist you, what type of assistance. Libyans will sit in the meeting, and based on your own personal desires, the Libyans will come in and help you to achieve that. But you had to go through a process, what we call then establishing your revolutionary, credentials. So no flukies went to sit at the Mataba to talk about revolution. You had to be practically vetted. You had to know what you're talking about. And what do I mean by fluky? You could not just go to Libya and say, hey, I want to launch a revolution and become a member of the Mataba. You had to show that you had the capacity, and if you wanted to stage, let's say, an armed struggle, you had to show that you had the manpower to accomplish it, and that you were willing to be disciplined, because, you know, and respect laws of war. We had to go through all of this at the Mataba. So, for example, those people that I associated with during the time I was there were the Sierra Leonean leader, Ali Kaba, the Gambian leader, Dr. Manning, M-A-N-N-E-H, Kukuya Samba Sanye is his real name. We're going to have to get the thing for that. The Burkinabe people, not people, the Burkinabe representative that was there. And so we'll go through this discussion and determine if or what you tell your problems and see how we could converge together. So the Mataba must not be looked at as though it was an organization on its own. The Mataba was an organization within itself comprising individuals that wanted to stage Pan-African activities on the continent.
I need to press you for more information on this, Mr. Taylor. So you've explained the composition of the group. You've explained how you needed to establish your revolutionary credentials. Was there an overarching philosophy at the Mataba?
You know, I've always not gone into these political philosophies. The Mataba did not press anyone to adopt a Libyan-style government or movement. The Mataba was about assisting in the overall philosophy of Pan-Africanism, where Africans would want to take control of their own continent, and I mean real control. That's the principal philosophy that we met there.
For example, we appreciate the link between Colonel Gaddafi and the Little Green Book. Was that required reading for everyone at the Mataba?
Yes, you were required to at least read it, but you were not required to adopt it as a philosophy or else.
So was there an all-encompassing philosophy at the Mataba? which had, for example, a Marxist-Leninist base.
Gaddafi would have never permitted anyone to stay in Libya if you had a Marxist, Leninist, communist base. I said before in my testimony, he was and is not communist. So it had to do with Pan-African approach as far as a political philosophy was concerned. Gaddafi is a socialist as far as the economic ideas are concerned. Okay, so no. He was not that that Marxist. No, Marxism. No.
Give us an idea of the total number of people who were at that camp at Tajura.
I don't know.
What are we talking about, Mr. Taylor? Can you give us some kind of idea?
Well, let me tell you what I mean.
In total.
No, I don't know. I'll put it this way. The leaders of the groupings in Libya did not stay in the camps. They visited their men in the camps. In the camps, all groupings that went, the camp Tajura is so huge, it probably could train 10, 15, 20,000 people at a time. But I would be misleading to say that I can approximate the number of people that were in there. But what I do know, when I arrived in Libya with my men, the Sierra Union group was already in Libya. The Gambian group was already in Libya. The first Liberian group taken by Dr. Famle was already in Libya. Now, I did not even know how many Liberians were in that first group, because you are not concerned and you are not permitted to associate with other groups. The only thing you knew that groups were there because you met their leaders almost on a daily basis, not in the camp, but in Tripoli, at the Mataba.
Now, why I'm asking you about numbers is I want to get an idea of how easy it would be to know, for example, all the members who were there from South Africa who were training, all the members from Gambia were training. That's why I'm asking. So, did you have any idea about that?
No. I hope this explanation will help the court. You're talking about a very, very huge military base that I think, and I stand corrected on this, maybe the records will show, may have been the largest U.S. base in Libya at the time. So United States bases are not small bases. They are humongous. Now, there were large groups because their leaders they're considered to be, extraordinary. The Liberian group that I carry may have been one of the smallest group. The point I'm trying to make here is that that base was capable of training at any one time 10, 15, 20,000 people, and there were times that you could have had as many, and I don't want questions to come up later where you said that there were 10,000 or 15,000 people. There were probably more people, because when you think about some of the groups that went there for training, some people carried thousands of people. But the point I want to drive home here is that you would very rarely be able to put your finger on exact amounts, because no matter how small or how large the group was, it was not your business. You did not have contact with the groups. You only had contacts with the leaders.
Were you ever permanently based at the camp in Libya, Mr. Taylor?
Never. I just said that I never lived at the camp. No leader in Libya that was a member of the Mataba lived at the military barracks at Tajura. You had an apartment in Tripoli. There was a guest house for those of us that went in and came out, that stayed at the guest house in Libya or at a hotel in Tripoli. But you never ever stayed in the camp. You could go and visit your men for several hours, sit around, talk with them, which was encouraged, because you don't want to just carry people to a military camp, drop them, they never hear from you again, when you just come back and say, hey, guess what, we're ready to take you. So you could go, which was a good idea, and it showed good leadership skills to go and sit with your men. Now, it must be important to note this. The men within the camp did associate with each other. So, for example, people from, I would say, the African continent, most of the men that trained, a lot of them knew each other very well because they were in the same camp. And sometimes, let's say, my men, for example, 168 men did not comprise, that's just about, I would say, probably a company size, militarily, one company. And so so if they wanted to say train a battalion size, maybe 400 or 500 men, they would put groups together. But that is for the training of the men in the camp. But they would not permit leaders to go there to go and meddle with other people or get to know who was there. That was not your business. The men knew each other, but the leaders knew each other.
Were the leaders in Tripoli based in the same guest house?
Some were in the guest house. Some were in hotels. Ali Kaba, Kukuya Samba Sanye, myself, most of the West Africans that did not really stay there a whole lot used the Mataba guest house. I had, there was an apartment in Tripoli that I used, okay, but most of them, and I came to Mataba every day, and as is normal, and I'm sure the judges will understand it. You're from West Africa, of course you want to hang with West Africans. So at the Mataba, most times, Dr. Manny